Elizabeth Chappell, a lifelong entrepreneur who finally found my niche. After years of new ideas and jumping from business to business, I figured out how to turn a craft into a successful career. In 2016, I started a monthly subscription box for quilters. That little startup has grown into a thriving, multiple six-figure business that I am so proud of. As a published author, designer of fabrics and patterns being sold throughout the world, my favorite thing to do is to teach others how to grow a career of their dreams. Each week, you'll hear from me or from other guests who are creative entrepreneurs, so you can learn exactly what to do and what not to do to grow a career that's more rewarding and successful than you ever thought possible. If you're ready to turn your craft into a career that you love, I am so excited you're here. Welcome to the Craft to Career podcast. Today, you're going to meet my friend, Tia Curtis. You'll hear Tia knows so much about quilting. Oh my gosh, the more I get to know her, the more comes out of how much she knows and how much experience she has. It is amazing. So Tia and I met years ago. She was a student in my quilt pattern writing course. And then we were in a small group together for Bonnie Christine's course. And that small group has been really fun. We still all keep in touch and we're good friends. And then, Tia and I have met up in person a couple of times. And I had a request to have both a quilt shop, like a local quilt shop, come on the podcast and talk about what it's like to run a brick and mortar store, and to have someone come on and speak about being a longarm quilter and how they grow their business and what that looks like. And Tia was who came to mind for me because that's exactly what she does. She is a very successful and talented longarm quilter. And as we talk, as you hear her, she actually does many, many things. But the cool part of it all is that her longarm quilting is her most successful, lucrative part of her business. So if that's something that you're interested in doing, you are going to love hearing from Tia. Before you meet Tia, I'm going to read the latest podcast review coming from Leanne Quilts. If you've not left a review, if you can just pause this real quick, go tap either a 1 through 5 star, and you can do that on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, and you can write a little review. This will really help other entrepreneurs to find the podcast. So consider this your good deed for the day, paying it forward, helping someone find this podcast. So Leanne Quilts says, I've loved listening to several of Elizabeth's episodes this week. Starting a creative business has always been in the back of my mind, but I'm often stopped by self-doubt and thinking there isn't room for me in this market. After listening to many episodes, I truly am motivated and I'm beginning to make a small list of goals and next steps. I already have a lot in place. I just need to jump. If only I could clone myself so I could fulfill my desire for this and my other responsibilities. Thanks for a great podcast, Elizabeth. Leanne, I am in your corner. I am cheering for you. I also know just how much work it is. And I feel you on wanting to clone yourself so you can do all of the things. And not that you're asking, but I'll share my advice. Just start small and start simple with one product, and do yourself that favor. Choose one product and one platform and just sell that on that one platform. And that will make it a little easier. Thank you so much for the review. And again, if you've not left a review, please take a moment to do that. And now let's jump in and let me introduce you to my friend and longarm quilter, Tia Curtis. Tia, thank you so much for being here on the Craft to Career podcast. For the listeners, can you just kind of introduce who you are in the quilting world?
Hi, Elizabeth. Thank you so much for having me. This is so exciting. I love your podcast. So my name is Tia Curtis. I am a longarm quilter. I'm a quilt designer. I dabble in pattern writing, and I'm an educator. So I travel around. I teach longarm quilting. I teach improv piecing, and I do trunk shows. I'm all over the place. It's all quilting, and I love it all.
Well, and you are so talented. And I actually reached out. I had someone ask, could you have a long arm quilter on the podcast to talk about like how you grow that business? So we'll talk about that, but I want to touch on all these different things that you do. And my first question is, which one is the most like financially successful for you?
Well, right now, long arm quilting for the public, for people, that is my primary income. I also travel and do trunk shows and workshops, and that one's close becoming, about equal revenue. But definitely, the long arm quilting that is my most profitable. I have two Gamma long arms, and they are running constantly. I do have them paused for this podcast. Yeah. So I'm a full-time quilter. So I don't have like a job outside the home, like as a nurse or, I don't know, an ambassador or anything. This is my job. So my turnaround's pretty quick.
Yeah. And how have you grown? Like how are people finding you?
Um, so most of my clients are mailing clients. Where I live in Kansas, and it's a pretty thick market with long arm quilters. There's a lot of local. So most of my clients are mail in, and I love that. So I guess from my Instagram feed, I get a lot of clients from, word of mouth. I have a pretty good newsletter. I send that out, and I get a lot of clients that way as well. But most of my clients, I've been quilting for them for years and years.
Okay.
Yeah. And I also do some custom quilting. I used to do a great deal of custom quilting. And over time, that's what was eating up most of my time. And, do you know what custom quilting is versus just a digital edge to edge?
Yeah, maybe explain that for listeners if they don't know the difference.
Sure. So a custom quilt job is when you take each block or section and do something special in it, as opposed to an edge to edge design, which is the same design all over the quilt, taking into no really a real account of like the piecing, the blocks. It's like a swirl all over, that's the money. Like if you're going to be a long arm quilter, the money is in, just doing edge to edge quilts, because you can, like, in the time it takes me to do a custom quilt, which will take about a week, 2 weeks, I could have gotten 20, 25 quilts quilted. So if you look at the money is in making the computer work for me.
And so I hire long arm quilters. I don't do it, but from my understanding, edge to edge, for the most part, you can kind of put it on the machine and let the machine just go. Whereas custom, you are literally there doing it all by hand, right? The quilting.
Yes. So both of my machines are computerized, but the custom quilting I'm known for is, I disconnect the belts and I just work my machine like a pencil with rulers, and I freehand all the designs. And I know that custom quilters are getting harder and harder to find, because it's just too hard to compete with the digital quilters who can crank out a quilt, in a couple hours. And so, we know that it's not, you get, your time is money, and we all have bills to pay. My my basement redesign guy is not gonna give me a special deal.
Right, exactly. Yep.
So,
which it is interesting. Which is a topic for another day, but I do feel like females will be like, "Oh, this is quilting. Can you give me a deal?" But you would not ask that. My dad did. This is embarrassing. He had been to Africa, and there's all this negotiation. And I was in high school. We came back, went to the mall, went to the Gap to go shopping. And he tried negotiating the price at the counter. I was like, I am leaving right now. What are you doing? Like, we don't do that, So I don't know why we feel like we could do that with someone who's quilting.
Well, yeah, and it's not just for quilting. Like I had a guild reach out not too long ago, and like their opener was, we don't have a lot of money, so we want to know what you can do for like this very, this amount of money. And I was like, well, nothing. I can't even travel there with that money. So like I have my fees, and those are my fees.
Yep.
It is what it
And I
is.
love that. I mean, are you comfortable sharing what you charge for a guild show?
Oh, sure. So for guilds, if I'm going to do like a 45-minute to an hour presentation, it's $500 for the presentation. And then if they want me to teach a class or workshop, I charge 500 for a 3-hour class and 1,000 for a 6-hour. Yeah.
Okay. And what would you teach if you were to do, yeah, what does a presentation look like and what would you teach in a class?
So I have a couple different trunk shows. One of them is, just my quilt journey, how I've started and all the progress to now. It's about 30, 40 quilts that I show. And I do that over Zoom as well for, guilds far away. Um, and then I have like a Welsh quilting presentation where, because I love Welsh style quilting. So I talk a little bit about the history of that and, how to break down the designs on your own quilt. I also teach that as a workshop. I teach improv piecing. I've several different improv classes. Um, but my new presentation that it's really going well is my creative muse. So it's kind of how I design, why I design, how I put all this stuff together. And at the end, we all like I grab a bunch of my orphan blocks and I put them on a design wall, and all together we design a quilt with them. I tell them how I pull stuff out, put stuff in, and it's pretty cool because so many quilt makers they want to follow a pattern, but in my opinion, patterns are just jumping off points. I'll buy. I don't really buy patterns very often, but I do buy books. I love books, and so I want to see how that designer came to how she worked through her process, because maybe that'll work in my life. So I like doing that, and then you wind up with all these extra things, and at some point they have to be used. So I don't know if you show pictures, but the quilt behind me is one of them.
Yeah. Well, and can you send me a picture of that and I'll put it
Sure.
up on the blog and show notes? But yeah, tell about that quilt behind you, like the story of how that was made.
So I love improv piecing. I love it. It's just such a nice, like, mind clearing project. It's like a puzzle. You just have fabric, you cut it up, you sew it all back together. And I work primarily with solids for my own work. Like if I'm designing a quilt, I'll try to use prints, but primarily I'm solids because solids always go together, pretty much always. So some of these blocks I made, 10 years ago, but I got the hankering to put them all together. So that's how they work, because they're all solids. But it's all improv, like triangles and strip sets and curve piecing. It's a lot.
I mean, it's so funny that you talk about improv. I need to come to one of your classes on improv because I've never done it. And when you're like, it's so relaxing, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like stress inducing thinking about it. So I have got to conquer that because it's got to be fun. You're describing it in a way that I'm like, I want to experience that, but I haven't.
Yeah, I love the puzzle aspect of it. Like you make the pieces and you make it work. And if it doesn't, there's nothing wrong with taking it off the design wall, putting it in a bag for years and bringing it out again later.
I loved when we first started this. You're like, these blocks were in the orphanage. I'm like, oh, that's a cute little terminology. Like they're orphan blocks living in the orphanage until they're ready to be used.
Yeah. Sometimes they come out and they go into foster care and they sit on the design wall for a while, but these ones all got adopted. They're now a happy family.
I just like the analogy. It's very clever. So, okay, I remember chatting years ago now, probably. Time is such a funny thing. But there was like a hotel that wanted to hire you to quilt for an elevator panel. Is this right?
Oh, yes, yes. This is some bougie hotel up in New York City, and they wanted me to create these custom quilted panels to line the elevator. And I was like, oh, that sounds so exciting. But then, they talked to the budget and they found out that this is the money they had. And would I just quilt, um, it was like a it was actually a Carly Porter edge to edge design that they wanted. Like this, it wasn't like one of her graffiti quiltings. It was just like a swirl or something. But they also wanted me to like custom make it perfectly to fit in the elevator, including these like grommet things so they could take it down and pin it back up. And I just like the amount of measurement that goes into that is outrageous because once you wash it, it's going to shrink up. So then it's not going to fit anymore. So I said, no,
Yeah,
that was a bridge
smart.
too far.
How did they find you though? Like, and that they knew Carly Porter's edge to edge. Like, who were these people? How did they find you?
I think so. I've got some fancy clients in New York. Hello, fancy people. So maybe they found it through them. I don't know. It was just like an email. We got your name as a quilter, and we'd like to know if you're interested. And I was like, yeah, tell me more. And then finally, I
Oh,
was like,
very
no,
cool.
no.
Yeah, too much, too much. So, okay, I'm curious. You mentioned your email list. What has been the most successful way for you to grow your email list, specifically for your long arm customers?
Well, how I initially grew it huge was I participated in one of those, like you make a pattern and it's like a bundle, one of those bundle groups. So I was in a bundle with a couple friends and, and, and I designed like a tote bag pattern, and that's how all of that happened. But a lot of those people have dropped off, in the wayside because I feel like I'm spamming them with something that they're not interested in because all they wanted was a tote bag. But so I like to buy digital edge to edge patterns. And so when I send out a new newsletter, I'll have like a little section like, here are my new patterns. This is what it's looked like on a couple of different of the quilts that I've quilted. Sometimes I buy more than I use. So this
Not
is the
never.
design. It might look pretty on yours.
Smart. Do you get an uptick in customers when you send that out?
Oh yeah, there's newsletters are magical. Like like I'll talk about the patterns I've written or new edge to edges or a garage sale I'm having for fabric. And yeah, so you never know what people are interested in. In my newsletters, they're kind of chatty. They're very simple. I send them out I should send them out more, but I've got a lot going on.
Yeah, you do. You do. So, and you were just at a guild presentation. What were you doing yesterday? That was,
Well, no, yesterday I went to a guild I'm a member of because I have a friend who she's like my featherweight dealer. She talks to all her friends and finds out who has a featherweight that they're not using anymore. And then she calls me and I go and get it.
so what do you do with these featherweights then?
So I have a little quilt club so I live near a military base and I'm part of their spouse club and I teach quilting for, the other spouses who want to learn. And a lot of them don't have sewing machines or they don't even have scissors yet. Not because they can't afford them, just because they just don't know. They don't know what to buy. They don't know what's good. So I'll bring, my little class supplies and I'll bring one of like, 7, 8 of my little featherweights. And so people can sew on a good solid machine that's not intimidating. And, I'll get them hooked and then then they'll go buy their own sewing machine.
And
But
then
I'm
they hire
also,
you for quilting.
well, maybe, but I'm also planning to do retreats. My friend has a great retreat center up. It's called the Art Nest. Her name is Tina. Hello. but I want to do retreats there. And the people who fly in to have a retreat with me, I already will have the machines provided, just little featherweights, because we're just going to be doing improv piecing. And that's a perfect machine for that kind of work.
Let me know when you host that. I could come to that.
Yes,
When is
it's
that
very
going to be
fun.
available? Yeah.
So when, like, the first retreat I ever went to was with Gwen Marston, and I don't know if you know her. She passed away a couple of years ago, but she was like the grandmother of the improv quilt, the modern quilt movement. And I went to a couple of her retreats, and she had featherweights available, so you didn't have to fly with your, $9,000 Bernina. You just pick up a machine as you went in. And I thought that was amazing, because I've lived in places where like I couldn't get machine servicing. Like we lived in Alice Springs, Australia for a while, and like my Berninas, I couldn't get them serviced because we lived in the middle of nowhere. And so that's always kind of been in the back of my head. I want to be able to do the servicing on my machine myself. So if you keep it pretty basic, it's pretty easy to take care of yourself. Now, I do have some fancy pants Bernina that I do take now that I live in civilization again.
All right, all right.
But it's nice to have a simple machine for sure.
Yeah, I just feel like you're next level. Like you drop all these things. Like I take care of my own machine. I'm like, what? I guess necessity, is the mother of invention
Yes.
or whatever.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, for the most part, I can take care of most of the machine work on my Gamel long arms as well. If there's like software kind of things, I can't do that. I worked with Gamel for a while. I traveled around and taught on one of their Quilting with Confidence tours back in 2019. So that was really fun. But yeah, so I know a ridiculous amount about
You
all the
do.
quilting things.
I know. Well, and like I knew you, I think we met, you took the quilt pattern writing course, and then you and I were in a group for Bonnie Christine's course in like a little small group. So that's been fun. And we still kind of keep in touch. And so I knew you that way. And then I think I went to like Quilt Market and you were a presenter. I was like, Tia, I didn't know you're like this specialty person who knows all the things. Like you've been holding out on me.
Yeah, I've taught a couple times at QuiltCon, which was, that's always great. But I always have to remember to get my packet in. These are the classes I want to teach, because it's, they book you out so early and they want new stuff. And, I'm always thinking of new things, but I don't know what I'll be thinking of in a year. Who knows
Right.
what'll be happening?
Yeah, exactly. Give me a day and I could come up with something. So you lived in like nowhere, Australia. Are you a military family yourself?
Yes. So my dad was career military or career army. Then I joined the army out of
Oh,
college. I
wow.
was
Look at you. You've done all the things.
yes, I was a nurse when I was in the army, and I met my husband who was also in the army. And so my husband retired from the army about 10 years ago. So we got stationed all over the world, which is pretty much why I'm a quilter, because um, the army doesn't pay you very much. It pays decent, but I had three kids, and all three of them were in childcare, and that was ridiculous. So I got out, and I stayed home with the kids, but I've never not worked. It was weird. So kids keep you busy, but they sleep a lot too when they're little. So I had a business where I made bags out of people's uniforms.
Oh, cool.
It was a great gig. So like they would send me their uniforms, and I would cut them up and make them into like tote bags or messenger bags, like anything they wanted. And that business was called Camp Follower Bags. But I quilted them. Like I didn't, like, I made up my own patterns. I was like, someone would ask, "Ooh, I want a messenger bag." I was like, "Oh yeah, I could figure that out." So I would just cut the uniforms, repurpose them, add, I loved Amy Butler and Anna Marie Horner at the time. So those were the fabrics that I used. They were gorgeous. And every once in a while, I'll meet a woman who still has one of my bags.
That is so cool. I would love that. That do you ever think you might go back to that or that ship
Oh,
has
gosh,
sailed?
no, no way.
You're like, don't know.
Like, like the business was so huge, but it was still just me doing all the work. I was working the website. I was, corresponding back and forth. I was doing the sewing. So the wait was really long. And, I would go up on my prices because, you're getting a really great bag. I still have mine. They still work fine. When's my pool bag? But yeah, no. I thought about writing a book. So I was in the process of, going back and forth with a book publisher, but another girl came out with a book, Deploy That Fabric was her book. And I was like, I'm not doing it.
Right, right. Well, hey, I would still love to see that if you decide to. But I am curious. So you've been in business for a long time. Can we talk about, I mean, the stuff that you're doing now, the travel and all of that? Like, can you just speak to different phases of your life, like how you made your business work when you had young kids at home, and now I think your kids are all moved out, right?
Yeah. I'm an empty nester. I've moved my sewing studio upstairs from the
Is it
basement.
so weird? Like, well, yeah.
I have to keep it. I try. I don't have to. I try to keep it tidier, which I'm kind of a messy worker. I like piles of stuff. um, so, how did I do this? So, when we lived in Australia, that's where most of this all began because I was working kind of by myself. I didn't know any other quilters, and I didn't like there was a fabric shop, but fabric is so expensive in other countries, especially Australia. So I had the email and I wrote fabric manufacturers like Free Spirit, and I just would I would reach out to different fabric companies and say, this is what I do. I'd like to make a quilt for Quilt Market for you. And so they would send me their new fabric, the fabric that hadn't been released yet, and I would design a quilt. I would write the pattern for the quilt. I would make the quilt. I would quilt the quilt. I would send it back to them, and it would be in their booth at Quilt Market. And then and how I made money from that was, magazines would reach out and want the pattern. So I would, write the pattern for the magazine. But I was just excited to, ooh, look at me, I'm in a magazine. But I didn't really read the contracts very well. And, that this is ours in perpetuity. I, you
Yep.
know, so, so a lot of my designs, are gone forever, but because a lot of the magazines are now out of business. But, the thing about being a creative is that we always have new ideas.
Yes.
It's a bottomless pit. It's
Yep.
focusing it that's the hard part.
Oh my gosh. It is. It is. How have you been able to? I mean, now you have more, like you have more venues, but like when you decided to long arm, I mean, how have you found success? How have you had periods where you've really had to focus it or like, yeah, talk to me about that.
Well, it's just been kind of a steady growth. I mean, it's not like I popped up yesterday. I've been doing this for like 20 years. When we lived in San Angelo, Texas, and I was doing a lot of quilting for different fabric manufacturers for Quilt Market, and the turnaround is absolutely mind-boggling. Like they get the quilt or they get the fabric, and 2 weeks later they need it all done. They need everything. Yeah, it's super fast. And I was doing that all on my domestic sewing machine because I didn't know any different. I didn't know anything about long arms. And I think it was Cloud Nine, which made this beautiful organic cotton. They wanted the quilt just kind of quilted in the ditch, and that's a big pain on a domestic machine. So I was like, I wonder, is there a better way? Bam! There was a long arm for sale in my little tiny Texas town. I bought it. put it in the garage, and it changed my life. It was amazing how the design possibilities just opened up by being able to see the entire quilt like from an eagle eye view versus, humped over it on your sewing machine, which is absolutely possible to quilt a quilt, but it's hard to have the creative freedom when you're kind of limited. I was limited by my tools, and now I'm not.
Yeah. Well, and that's interesting. I hadn't thought about the viewpoint, like when you're really zoomed in and you're focusing on one area as opposed to having the entire quilt laid out. It's not right or wrong. It's just different, it's a different angle, a different viewpoint.
It's 100% different. And I mean, like I'm older now. I can't imagine quilting, king size quilts on my domestic like I used to do. Like over time, our bodies fail us, don't they?
I know, darn it. It's just not
But
fair.
yeah, it is what it is. But the long arm is better for, long-term use.
When I first started offering online courses and a membership, I needed a platform that could do it all without giving me a tech headache. That is why I chose Kajabi. I have been blown away by everything it can do. With Kajabi, I run my courses, a membership, email marketing all in one place. You can even build a website with a blog and sell digital products, host webinars and coaching calls, and even set up an affiliate program, all without needing a dozen different tools. And the best part, it's powerful yet easy to use. I love it so much that I even created a free course to show you how to get started with Kajabi. Access my free course on how to use Kajabi and try Kajabi for free by visiting bit.ly/QC Kajabi or visit the show notes for the link. If you're ready to streamline your business and enjoy the process, give Kajabi a try. You are going to love it. So to dive into the long arm quilting aspect of your business, I'd love to just hear, like, if someone out there is wanting to start or grow their long arm business, first of all, how do you decide what to charge? And then I want to talk more about the materials, like how do you choose the batting, the thread? Do you offer binding? So let's start with how do you price yourself, and how would you recommend someone does that?
Sure. Well, I guess the best way to do it is find out what people are charging in your area. If you are a brand new quilter, you just got your long arm, you're still learning, you're not going to charge a premium rate because you got to learn. Consider yourself an apprentice. So when I first started quilting, everybody charged like a penny and a half a square inch in my area. That's also what I charged. And it was all just, freehand edge to edge that I offered to begin with. And then I started offering custom. And I think I started my custom prices at 2 cents a square inch. Yeah. Well, obviously, everybody went with custom because it was only, half a penny more. So that's what oh my gosh, but I got so much experience. And then I looked around and all the quilts I had were custom quilts and it was taking forever. So I went up on my prices. So now there's a dramatic difference in custom and edge to edge. So now my edge to edge price is 3 cents a square inch and my custom price starts at 14 cents a square inch. And that's just like an estimate, ballpark estimate. This is how much it's going to cost. I charge an hourly rate. I've got enough time that I know, if I've got an 80 by 80 inch quilt, it's going to take me, X amount of hours to get it done. So 14 cents a square inch it's a pretty generous, just an estimate. So people know, are you going to be paying me your house payment
Right.
for your quilt?
Right.
Is it worth it? I don't know.
Right.
So I've made those differences, extreme. Like people like, oh, I've got this quilt. I want you to custom quilt it. And I'm like, oh, it's all print fabric. The custom quilting's not really going to show up. I'll give you a quote for both a really nice edge to edge and for custom, and you decide. I can get
Yep.
it done for
Well,
you
that's
next week, or I can get it done for you next year. It's up to you to
right.
decide.
And that's nice of you to say, like, oh, you're not going to see it on this quilt because of the fabric. That's something I probably wouldn't know so much because I piece the quilt top. I don't do the quilting. So I would appreciate a quilter saying, like, if you're going to invest in custom quilting, maybe not this quilt because you're not going to see it, you know?
Yeah, there's different levels of custom quilting. I've been custom quilting a long time. So, my work is a little more developed. Like, not every quilt needs custom quilting on it. They just don't. Like, if it's a quilt that's going to be used a lot and thrown through the wash a lot, they don't, that's a quilt that just needs to be, stitched together with something pretty and it'll be wonderful. You don't need to spend so much money on a custom quilter unless it's like a show quilt. Is this a quilt that's going to, work for you? Are you going to put it in shows? Are you going to compete with it? Then it's a different matter. It does make
Yeah.
me sad when I go to quilt shows and I see it's just edge to edge quilting on all the quilts. Ugh, yuck. It's a wait. I mean, I love an edge to edge quilt, but
But not for a show.
come on, people.
So, yeah. And for the layperson like me, I honestly don't even know what this per square foot or whatever means. I'm like, so do you generally tell someone like, oh, well, that means if your quilt is 70 by 90, that'll cost X amount? Or does the customer figure it out?
So this is what I do. So if you've got like a 60 by 60 quilt, I don't know where my phone is, so I can't do math.
Me neither.
If it's 60 inches wide and 60 inches long, you multiply those together and you get the square inches of the quilt, right?
Ah, okay.
And then you multiply that by like 3 cents a square inch for an edge to edge or 14 cents a square inch for
Okay.
custom. And that's how that number comes about. Yeah.
I just learned something new. Thank you.
Oh, you knew that, Elizabeth.
No, I didn't, Tia. I did not.
Because, and I don't know about all long arm quilters, but I have batting available for purchase. I also have some backing fabric available. So if people don't want to, pick out their own back, I have a couple different varieties. So I need to know the size of the quilt so I can cut the right amount of batting, cut the right amount of backing, set the design up correctly.
Do you piece the backing for them if they need that?
Oh yeah, sometimes that's easy. I don't like to try to match patterns
Yeah.
because
Who's got
I'm
time for
not,
that?
in case you didn't realize, I'm not a perfectionist.
I swing back and forth between not being and being a very perfectionist. So I don't even know what I am, but yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
okay, the batting, how have you decided what batting to offer? Do you ever have customers like, I want this kind of batting? And you're like, sorry, I only have this or this.
Yes. I once had a customer who, like, she was an ambassador for some sort of batting, and that's the only batting she wanted in her quilt. And I drove all over Kansas City trying to find this batting. And so I found it. It was a weird brand, no problem. I used it in her quilt, sent it to her, bill and everything. And when she got it, she's like, well, this isn't this is weird batting. What did you use? I was like, well, I literally used what you asked me to use. I showed her in the email, this is what you said. She's like, oh, I meant Quilter's Dream Wool. Like, I can't, I'm
Oh
not
no.
psychic. You got it. This is what you're telling me to do. This is what I'm
Oh
going to do.
no.
So, whatever. I don't quilt for her anymore.
Yeah, no. That's a misunderstanding.
Well, yeah, it was a series of misunderstandings, but she was also a super busy, she was a busy artist, but still, I can only work with the information I get, right?
Yes.
So far as batting goes, I have a wholesale license, so I buy rolls of batting from Quilter Stream Batting. I love it on the roll because it's not all wrinkly, and sometimes if they're in the packages, they'll have those like permanent forever crease marks. I like batting from the roll. It's good batting every single time I've ever used it. It's very consistent with the weight, the loft. It's well made. It's a U.S. product. Yay. So that's just kind of what I've always used, and I like it a lot. I carry wool, cotton, blend. And I have two different lofts of cotton. I have like regular loft, and I have a super thin loft that I like working with on my travel quilt or the quilts that go on the road with me.
Okay. And then for thread, I always stick with white thread.
Yeah.
Okay, I had a quilt once where it wasn't white and I actually unpicked it all because it looked so bad.
Hey,
But
white is a crowd pleaser. It's a
is
good,
it?
solid,
Okay.
practical color. You're not doing anything wrong.
Right. Well, and I guess you could use a color to like make a statement. I don't know. Talk to me about thread colors. When and why would somebody use something besides white?
So I like to try to blend the thread color to the whatever the color of the quilt is. Because if you're, not paying me for custom work, I want or even if you are paying me for custom, I want my work to complement your quilt, not be like this big scream across your quilt. I want it, I want them to get along. So I try to choose the same colors. Um, like, if it's like a basically cream quilt, I'll use cream batting. If it's like a blue on the top and white on the back, I'll try to use blue on the top, white on the back. I want it to blend. I want it to work. And you get to choose whatever color you want. I have probably 300 different colors of threads. Um, so yeah, that's easy. And I like Glide. It's like a trilobal poly. It's beautiful. It squishes into the quilt. It looks great on the more contemporary quilts. And for the more traditional quilts, I'll use Omni, which is also a polyester, but it looks a little bit like cotton. Like my machines are they're industrial machines. So I don't like using cotton thread on them because it's weaker and it breaks, and that's frustrating, and it's very linty.
Yeah,
Even
yeah,
like
that's true.
if I try to use Aurifil on my long arm, I've not been successful with it. So I got to go with what I know, and I like polyester
Yep,
thread.
what works. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's interesting. Because now I'm like, well, maybe I'll try it because it does get dusty on my machine from the thread and it's cotton.
Now I
So,
don't piece with polyester thread. I piece with
oh,
cotton
really? Okay, how come? Why?
because I do a lot of pressing, and that heat from the iron can kind of melt a polyester thread. It doesn't melt it, but it just changes the the chemist. Don't please, everybody who's
Right, I'm not
listening to
going to
this.
quote you
I
on
am
this.
not a
Yeah.
chemist. I don't know what it does, but I don't use
You are
polyester.
a lot of things, but not a chemist.
I'm not a chemist.
Okay, I'm also very curious about the size of the pantograph because, from personal experience, I went to a long arm quilter and she wanted the design to be very like big. I don't even know how to describe this. And I was like, can we like tighten it up? And I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's more young slash modern to have like tight, smaller quilting designs, pantographs, whereas maybe more traditional, older, like more of a wider. What's the terminology here? Help me
Oh,
out,
yeah,
Tia.
yeah. So you're talking about the scale of the design.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. So, and I'm not sure about everybody's computer program, but mine on my Gamels, it's just like any other computer program. Like you bring in a design and you can stretch it and make it huge. You could make it tiny. You can warp it. You could do whatever you want. It's very similar to Illustrator. Um, but the scale of the design is very important for the actual quilt, because if you quilt like this gigantic scale, if you blow it up and make this big, huge scale, you're going to have a lot of unquilted space so that when it's washed and dried, it can be funny looking. It can be puffy. And I think that those look more dated. Those look like they came out of the 80s, which is fine.
Yeah.
If,
Right,
I do have some clients that want, don't quilt this densely. I want this very sparsely quilted. And, I can do that. I mean, for my personal work, I want my lines pretty close, like about less than an inch if I'm doing
Mm-hmm.
like custom work.
Right.
And I always want my scale to be very consistent across the entire quilt. So like, I can audition it, like bring in a picture of the quilt, kind of diminish the opacity and try different layouts on top of the actual quilt so you can get an idea for what the scale will actually look like.
That's cool. Is that a typical thing that long arm quilters will do and they'll send that image to their client, or do you just
I
figure it
normally don't
out?
send it to the clients. I just do that for my
Okay.
own use, or when people come over, because that means I have to take a picture. I've got to download it into my computer. But if it's especially for custom work, like those, I'll take a picture of. I bring it into Procreate and practice different, designs just to kind of get my brain going. Um,
Yeah.
but when clients come to the house, if they're kind of local or coming from like the Kansas City area, I'll show them the different design options and the scale we can do, how many repeats, all that stuff. Some of those sessions run long.
Yeah. I feel like, and we're charging by the hour for this.
Well, I'm a talker, so that's also dangerous.
Like, yeah, I'm charging you by the hour. So, okay, clients. Now let's just talk about. I mean, this can benefit both the quilter who's listening and someone who's a business owner. What to look for in a client? What are some red flags to avoid if someone asks whatever? Be like, just run. Talk to me about clients.
I used to say yes to everybody because, I loved quilting. And, you know, sometimes some of the yeses, they would like negotiate a new price. And, they got me so flustered that I accepted it. And so I was working for less money that I should be. And then those are always the problem clients. Those are the ones that won't come and pick up on time, or they won't pay promptly, or, they make all these decisions, which it's their quilt. It's their quilt. I want to do what's best for it. But sometimes they're wrong. They're just wrong. And those I don't like working with them because it's just too stressful. Like I'm a very emotional person, and I wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning replaying conversations I had years ago where I should have said no. Like, and just sometimes just from the outset, from an email communication back and forth, they want something super super specific, which I'm not comfortable doing for whatever reason. And, those I'm like, I don't know if I'm the right quilter for you.
Yeah. Have you gotten more comfortable just telling somebody like, no, I'm not going to do this for you? How do you say that?
Yes, yes. So for my custom business, I've really limited the custom quilts I take because I want to be able to work on my own stuff. I want to use the time I would be using doing someone else's custom quilt. I want to use that time to be writing patterns or developing, something that I want to work on. So now I'll only take custom quilts from clients who also send me a couple edge to edge quilts because it's edge to edge that
Smart.
keeps the lights on. And I need to know if we're going to be able to work together. If I'm working on, like a $3,000 quilt for you, $3,000 job, I want to know that you're going to pay
True.
on time, right?
Have you ever had someone never pay you?
Uh, yeah.
That's a yes. Okay.
Yeah, that was when I first started, and I would send the quilt before I got the money, and that's That was
Learn
dumb.
the hard way. Yep.
Oh
Yep.
yeah,
But you
yeah.
don't know. I mean, you just assume people are going to be honest, and yeah,
Yeah,
you
I mean,
learn.
I'm honest, so I assume everybody will
Right.
be.
Right. Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. Oh well, that was a good learning lesson.
Okay, and then I'm curious because when I first started quilting, I was this person. My seams were not always a quarter inch. And it was a long arm quilter who lovingly gave me some great advice that has really helped. And I really appreciated that. But I can imagine as a long arm quilter, the stress of trying to make it look good when the piecing is kind of crap, Like at that point, what do you do?
Well, quilters are made by people, and we're not perfect. None of us are. So, I mean, I'll quilt anything that comes to me, but sometimes there's definitely lessons that to be learned, lessons for me and lessons for the piecer. And if they seem like, they're up for a piecing lesson, I'll be happy to give it to them. But, a lot of my clients are like, I was got so sick of it at the end. I just slapped on some borders and I sent it to you. You deal with them. And I'm like, okay, I can. I know what to do. Um, yeah, but overall, I am my worst client. I'm the worst piecer that that I have to
Are
quilt
you
for.
really? Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, because I can fix most of it on the long arm and I don't mind, but I would never want a quilt maker not to get their work finished because they're embarrassed of their piecing because we're it's not a quilt until it's quilted, friends. So we got to get there. And I quilt for everybody. Doesn't matter.
Well, that is nice. That makes me feel comfortable because sometimes I've been around long arm quilters where they'll talk crap about their customers, and I feel scared to send my quilt in because I'm like, they're judging, and I know that there are mistakes. Like, yeah.
No, no. I mean, if you go to a museum and you look at art, it's not perfect, but that's what makes it so wonderful. So I love it when different quilt makers send me quilts that are like totally unique and wild. I love that. I love it. But yeah, perfection, you know,
Overrated.
we don't need to be perfect. I do my
I like
best,
that.
but
Right,
you know,
right. Yeah. So, what are any last tips that you would have for someone out there who's wanting to start a long arm business?
be adventurous, be gentle with yourself. It's not going to be perfect. Don't get overwhelmed. If you're, charging less than a penny a square inch, go up on your prices. Make it worth your time. Think about how much are you paying your plumber? How much do you want to be paid? Because I do know a lot of quilters who, have, like a quilt queue that's like 50 quilts deep. That's overwhelming. That's overwhelming. So you're working like an absolute, you're working like a coal miner. But I think coal miners
Hmm.
get paid more. So, this this doesn't have to be a business that breaks your back. It could be a business that's very, very lucrative. And, you run it the way you want to run it. Like I have a bunch of different streams of income, but quilting is my favorite part.
And it's your bread and butter, it sounds like. Like that's the one that really does the best for you. So that's really
I,
cool.
I love it.
Awesome. And if our listeners want to go find you, see all the things that you do, where is the best place for them to go?
Well, my website is tiacurtisquilts.com and Instagram is at Tia Curtis Quilts. I post a lot of videos. If you like the whole ASMR of free motion quilting, I do that. I love it. I'm not much of a Facebooker, but Instagram and just my regular website, tiacurtisquilts.com. Send me your quilts,
Awesome.
friends.
Yeah. Well, it's funny as you're talking about your custom quilting, the more you make it like elite, the more I want you to do it. You know,
Oh.
it's so funny. The psychological, I'm like, ooh, now I really want her to do custom
Send
quilting.
me a couple edge to edges.
I know,
And
right?
then-
I will pay. I promise I'll pay. You know where I live, Tia, if you need to come collect. No, just kidding.
Yes, I'll knock on your house next time at Quilt Market.
I know. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast, Tia. You're such a fun friend. You've got such a fun energy about you and so much knowledge and experience.
Well, I appreciate it, and I hope I didn't upset anybody about quilts or threads or bobbins, batting. I love it all, y'all.
Very helpful. Yes. Awesome. Thank you so much.
All right, bye.
Tia, that was so fun. Oh my gosh. I just love chatting with you. Your energy is amazing and you are so truly talented. If anyone gets a chance to go and learn from Tia or even just follow her and see the amazing work she does, go check her out on Instagram at Tia Quilts. And then you can check out her website too. Hire her for Longarm Quilting or just go take a look at what she does and her work and her business. So Tia, thank you so much for being here. And join me next Friday. We'll have a brand new episode on the Craft to Career podcast.